It's a pleasure having you today. Thank you for your time for the interview. So we are inspired by the work that you are doing with Free Cities Foundation, and today we would like to learn more about your experience, to talk about the challenges that the concept has behind it, how to overcome it, and what are the most important social perks that it has. But to start from, to make you feel more comfortable, I would like to start with some quick-fire questions. And do not think too much, but just answer with the first thing that is coming up to your mind. So my first question is, one book that everyone should read before debating political systems, if any?
Liberalism from Ludwig von Mises.
What is more crucial for a new city? To have a constitution or a code of ethics when it comes to a private city?
A contract with the government.
If you could name one guilty pleasure, so a kind of luxury that you won't be able to live without, even in the most libertarian private city.
What was the first part of the question?
What would be your guilty pleasure that you would not be able to resist and to live without, even in the most libertarian city?
Guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Red wine.
That's a good one. Always valid. So quite often you are speaking about free private cities as a quite radical reimagining of governments. I would like to ask you what basically inspired you, what crystallized this idea. Was there any particular experience or life-changing thing for you with that?
Yeah, there was no particular thing. It was rather my occupation with free market thinking. And then I suddenly realized, hey, wait a minute, this is a market. So we should use the same principles that we're using in a market in our living together systems. And I recognized suddenly that, hey, what we are living in is ancient time framework. And on the other hand, we can decide every day what we buy in the supermarket, where we travel, and all this. We can make these choices still. And so I thought, why not transfer that model to the market of living together, as I call it? I think this was the main idea that came to my mind. I don't know when, but at some point in time, and then I said, hey, that's it. Because I was so frustrated of being part of politics, trying to convince people. I said, it's not working. What can I do? And then it's strange, because we are all talking about free markets and how the market is so good. And then we never came to the idea that we should just adopt that principles in our way of living together.
Well, I think that you are definitely right, but it is also about the opportunity, I guess, to be able to see the opportunity. And if there is nothing existing at the market right now, you're always able to create it. What is basically that you are doing? Then my second question would be, what is the biggest misconception that people have about free private cities?
That it is for the rich only. That's the biggest misconception at all. It's completely untrue, but that's what many people think.
What arguments are you using to debunk this myth?
Because the city is composed of all kinds of people, of all kinds of income groups. And the second is, if you look, for example, at an example of the real world, Prosper in Honduras, what is the annual fee for Hondurans? It's $260 per year. So don't tell me that's for the rich only. It's just not true. And it also doesn't make sense, because we want to create a city, not a gated community or a resort for the rich. So you need all kinds of professions, you need all kinds of people, and we want to have all kinds of people. And I think that this is, and the other practical example, Morazan in Honduras on the mainland, is 99% poor Hondurans only, right? There is probably no rich person living in that city. So I think this is a complete misconception, because people do not understand the concept, maybe do not want to understand the concept, and have their prejudices about some people who are starting new things, who are people who have some money, have had some success in their life, that makes them think, okay, then they must create something which is only for rich But this is a misconception, as I said, and we can prove this in practice, right? So that, therefore, I'm not it's not a biggest concern that people think that, because we will easily disprove that. But I'm still surprised how often I hear that.
How would you see the ways to ensure that there is inclusivity and the fairness in the model? If you had to explain it to a person who is very, very far from the idea.
Okay, it's easy. There's an offer. You look at the website, you say, this is the city, these are the city regulations, which is basically a common law system, traditional one. And here's the contract, these are your rights, these are your obligations, this is what you have to pay. And then you can decide for yourself if you like that. And then you apply to become a citizen. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, what nationality, what skin color, whatever you have. But we will check if you maybe are a criminal or a political extremist, and then we reserve the right to refuse you. But for 99% of normal people, that's not a problem. They can just apply and they will be accepted.
That's a very good point. The question is, while advocating for less government, then how to stay carefully optimistic that people will embrace self-responsibility, because that's important.
That is a very important question. And that was, I think, the core of the model is indeed, how do we deal with that? That this is not eroding over time, because people want more and more benefits from the city and all kinds of things. And the answer to that is the citizen's contract or the residence contract, which means that every single resident has a bilateral contract with me as the operator or the operating entity. And you know that you cannot interfere in the contract of your neighbor because you're not part of this relationship. And there is no forum for people to hijack that, like a parliament, where they can then make their laws for their special interest groups and all these things. The answer in a nutshell is there is no forum for rent seekers and hijackers, because everybody has a bilateral contract, and this contract cannot be changed unilaterally, neither from me, neither from you, or the majority.
That's the answer. There is another challenge. So, for example, national defense is often being cited as a classic public good that even free private cities would rely on, especially if they border some traditional nations. Then the question is how to address the criticism that private cities might end up free riding on the security that would be provided by some
By the host
surrounding
nation.
states. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no free riding, because we say to the state, we're taking these services like foreign policy and defense will remain part of the state sovereignty in the free cities model, right? The free city is not a sovereign entity, it's an autonomous city within an existing state. The state can demand something in exchange for that, right? Like in Honduras, the city zones, they are paying 12% of their income to government of Honduras in exchange for making use of these services. So there's no free riding, unless the government says, we're giving you this for free if you in exchange build some infrastructure that we can also use, or attract some companies that we want here. This is a negotiation, and the host nation has their interest in mind when they're negotiating with us. So there is no free riding. If, for example, in the beginning, we would also maybe have to use the firefighters and emergency rescue of the existing established services, but we would pay for that, right? We would agree on a lump sum payment to the neighboring community, which is part of the host nation, for example. And this is only the free cities model, especially the free private city model, international city as we call it, can only work and can only be agreed upon if there's a win-win-win situation created. Win, of course, for us is the one who wants to operate that, but also win for the host nation, for the government. They have to have some benefits out of that, and the local population. This is the third win. Maybe jobs or whatever, better infrastructure. Only if these three wins are there, there's a chance of success to establish a free private city.
What were the most crucial obstacles that the concept of free cities, in your experience with Free Cities Foundation, were facing, like legally, culturally, let's say pitching wise, and how were you overcoming them?
Yeah, I think governments that are willing to negotiate about that are reasonable and innovative enough that they are good partners. The problem is when there's a change in government, and the problem is, of course, the left press. They are, for them, it's a totally, they totally dislike that. In a way, because there's a misconception this is an enclave for the rich, but also I think unconsciously that they know that the good people will leave to these places, and who should pay them then in the future, right? That may explain why they are so fiercely against that project. Because on the other hand, I can say, what is your problem with letting people voluntarily try out new things if the government agrees to that? You can try out your own communist villages or kibbutzes. Nobody has a problem with that. But they seem to have a problem with us trying out new things. And the explanation, again, is misconception of the model, and but also the fear that if this is successful, then they're out of business.
Right. I think that this is one of the biggest challenge, which is very hard to be admitted by the public administrations. Yeah. Oh, okay. Speaking about the current developments, what is the biggest work in progress right now with Free Cities Foundation? What are the current developments, and what are the future plans, let's say, for this year?
Yeah, so there are two things. I mean, I'm CEO of Tipolis, which is a for-profit company really negotiating with governments about projects. And the other thing is the Free Cities Foundation that is not making projects on their own, they're just spreading the word. But they're collecting projects, and once a year they are presented in Prague at the annual conference. And I think the Free Cities Foundation is doing a good job by letting more and more people know about the ideas behind it, that making podcasts with a large variety of people. And more and more people are interested in what's going on. The Free Cities Foundation has sponsored a very, very important video. It's called Zones of Progress, where they show how the special economic zones have developed so far that now it's only a small step to make them a kind of free private cities. Because they're already residential zones, they're not only businesses like in the past, they're already residents there. They have tailor-made legislation, like in Dubai International Financial Center. And this is not something that the government has to fear. If the government is innovative, they can profit from those zones. They will be capable of profiting from the free private cities, as did China in the past with Shenzhen Special Zone, as did the world with Hong Kong, as did in the Middle Ages Central European monarchs by granting free cities the right to exist because they had economic benefits from that. So I don't think that it's necessarily a confrontation with the existing states. It's more that some interest groups in the country or outside of the country, for several reasons, don't want this kind of competition. But for us as users, as citizens, as people, it's good to have more options, right? Because this is the only power limiting factor that mankind knows. It's competition. It's not a written constitution, not even the citizens' contract. It's competition, right? If people can go and just leave the city and go to the next better place, that is keeping me as an operator in line. I say, I want to deliver a good product because otherwise I'm going out of business. So I have to treat my people well. And if this idea becomes more accepted all over the world, then I think we can contribute, even if there are only 5 or 10 free private cities all over the world, we can contribute to that way of thinking that even legacy states, traditional nation states say, okay, I have to treat my people as customers, not as milking cows or subjects. If this mindset is starting, then we don't need the whole world to become a free private city.
No, I think it's a big shift in thinking, and also I think it is much more productive. Free Cities Foundation sparked more and more interest in this subject, and I know that lots of projects arose from there. I know that some of them are mentioned even on the website. How do you ensure that they are also delivering good projects? I know that you are meeting at the conference, so you have the opportunity to discuss, but are you teaming up? How do you see the current developments and the rise of these projects?
There are more and more projects. Definitely, you can say that. And I mean, there are two types of project. The one is the real autonomy project that have legal autonomy, which normally requires years of negotiation. And then you have the smaller, I would call them intentional community projects, where just people are living together according to their own rules, but they're still subject to all the state rules. This is easier to found. But we have an increase in both. I mean, from what I do, I'm of course more interested in the autonomous project because this is trailblazing. This is the frontier of global development in that sector. So I'm looking what is happening with NEOM in Saudi Arabia. This is a state project, but it's the same thinking. We make one country, two systems, and in this part we should have more liberal, more freer, and more innovative regulation than in the rest of Saudi Arabia. And then you have our project. We have signed a contract with the government of Brunei, but it's still in the negotiation phase about the final design, so I cannot say more to that. But we are also in negotiation with several Latin American countries. And I know that other groups, and this is the good thing, it's not only us, there are other groups that are following not exactly the same, but a similar path. And this is and I know that there are two projects that may come up with real autonomy, that may pop up in the next month. But these things can go wrong in the last minute, right? So don't be disappointed. But what we can clearly say, there's an increasing number of projects. Not all of them are successful, not all of them are good. But you can be sure that if a project is on the website of the Free Cities Foundation, we have done some vetting that this is not a crazy idea, but there's real substance behind it. But that can change, right? A project can fail and disappear. New projects are popping up. And I cannot guarantee that all of them will be good. It's impossible. It's like in the market. You bring new products, not all products are a good idea.
And how do you think, what are the core things that are keeping these projects alive?
The desire of people to try something out, something new. So many people are really dissatisfied with what they have, and I can say this, when I first started with my thinking in this way, which was about 10 years ago, most people would have said that's somewhat strange, crazy, but that has changed, right? Every second person I talk to, a normal person, is somewhat okay. Yeah, that could be something to it, because people feel that something is wrong with our systems. They feel they have no say, right? No matter what they do, there's no big change happening, and no matter for whom they vote, there is only limited change, and they have the feeling that it's their life, it belongs to them, so they want to make something out of it. And some also understand that it's not a good system where the rules are constantly changed, but never by you, right? That's what some people start to understand, and why they see the beauty of this contractual model.
Mm-hmm. And one last question for our audience, for our readers. If someone is getting interested in the concept of free private cities, how should they start digging deeper into the subject? What should be the core sources, core information, where they can find maybe something with foundation or beyond the borders of the foundation?
Yeah, a good question. I think the easiest way is just to go indeed on the website of the foundation. It's free-cities.org. And there you can download my white paper. The white paper is basically my book in short form that can you read in 20 minutes. And then you have a bit better understanding of the whole idea. And then, if you like it, then you can look what other projects are there. Then you can click the project description. And then if you are still interested, then let's assume you are interested in particular in one project that you find on the website, on the Free Cities Foundation's community directory, it's called. And then you look, is there a podcast with one of the organizers of this project? And then you listen to the podcast. And I think thanks to the modern technology, we have tons and hours of material. But I would recommend just to start looking into my white paper to get a better understanding of why we are doing this.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.